This is Sailor, the Piperman, Piper the Sailor. Man, I want to talk something very, very personal about my grandmother. My grandmother was born in 1914, and she arrived in from Puerto Rico to New York around 1929 during the stock market crash. Because she always talked about how it was, and people were online, and people needed to get fed, and how really bad it was. Not even talking about the Dust Bowl, but she knew she was a very beautiful woman. And my father, she was connected to the underworld in Puerto Rico. Believe it or not, Puerto Rico has an underworld. She was connected there, just like the mobs were connected to Cuba. There were mobsters in Puerto Rico. So my grandmother was always having a social club, always running numbers, always in the gambling business. Until later in life she accepted Jesus Christ, but her life was always at nighttime, running numbers, the bobs, drinking alcohol. And I think maybe she was involved in prostitution. Not that she was in prostitution, but that she was like a madam. That was my grandmother. And she couldn't speak that much English, but her beauty, her aggressiveness, and her willingness to learn. Back in the 1920s and 30s, she became connected to the mob, the Irish mob, the Lower East Side or Lower West Side, the Bowery, I think. Way back then in 1930s, man, Al Capone and all these guys, and Valachi and all these were the Italian guys. But being that you were connected with the Irish, there was always power struggle in the streets in New York, and the Irish would have an area, then it would be given over to the Italians, and then the Italians would give it over to the Irish. There was always going back and forth wars. In New York, there wasn't as much killing as there were in Chicago, because there was a lot of bootlegging. And my grandmother was involved in the bootleg business. I had these small like speakeasies where these girls would come and dance. They would get paid to dance. Like she would go and all these nice, beautiful Puerto Rican girls, she would hire them to come over to the house. But the men had to pay money so they could dance with the women. That's how the girls collected money. You had to pay to dance with these girls. And so my grandmother always bought the liquors, and the guy, she would sell drinks. How she would get the liquor, I don't know. But she had nice prices. Her customers were Irish, Italian, Jewish guys, some Puerto Rican guys. But mostly she dealt with white established America, because she knew well money. And they would always call my grandmother Alex. Alex. They had great respect for her because she was very fair. If a guy wanted to meet a girl, she would be the one going to the girl. Listen, this guy is willing to help you. You need a job, right? What do you need? I'm an operator. She would connect him with the right guy. They would hit it off, and he was living out on Long Island, and he needed a girl in the city, and so she became his girl, and he would get her the job, and she would collect the fee off of that. My grandmother was always a loan shark. Always a loan shark. I'm telling you this after the fact, after later on in life, my aunts opened up and my cousins opened up, and then she opened up a little bit. So my grandmother married this guy that was a bouncer, my mother's father, and he was connected. He was connected with the Italians, and he was like a hitman. Not really a hitman, but somebody that would stand guard or whatever. Something needed to get done. he get it done. And he was a big guy, 6'2", 6'3", weighed 280s, and it was and he looked like a Sicilian. He wasn't Sicilian, but the look. Maybe if I did a DNA test, I'd be surprised. And he had a mustache, and his whole thing, his calling card was the gravity knives. He was good with knives, and you mess with him and you were gonna get cut up. He didn't like to carry guns. He was good with knives. I remember an incident. My mother told me this. She was a little young girl and she went to school, and the school was predominantly Italian. So my mother's dark complected like me. They wanted to put her in this nice school, really nice school. He took her to school, and this girl was picking on her. The white girls. Italian kids, they bullying. There's always a bully, right? Was bullying her. And so my mother decided that was enough. My mother was 4'11", but she's a firecracker, man. To this day, she's a firecracker. You mess with her, and my mother's 86, and she's still strong. So they picked her home. I don't know what she did that they end up calling the girl's father to school, the girl's uncle to school. All the Goombas showed up. All the, Sicilian mobsters showed up for this little girl, I don't know. She was the daughter of one of these capo guys. And so my uncle went to school to see what was going on. Well, what's they having this meeting? So when they went into the principal's office, these guys were like, oh, you don't belong here, this and that, where you from? This is from Puerto Rico, you don't belong, go back home. They started with that rhetoric. And my uncle was sizing them up, They didn't know my uncle from nothing. Later, they found out that he was connected, but at that moment in school, they didn't know him from nothing. And they were talking to him, and then he could understand. He couldn't speak well English, but he understood it. So he go back, you wet back, you grease ball. I don't know what they would say to him. And that was enough. He had enough. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the principal's office, he breaks out his gravity belt. He goes, and opens it up. And he looks at them and goes, you motherfuckers. in Spanish, you motherfuckers, come on outside. Come on outside. They looked at these Italian guys who were like, what the heck did he just do in the middle of the principal's office? I mean, not even a gangster would do that. He opened that knife up and he pointed at him, the guy that was talking all the smack. He says, come on outside. You, me, let's go. And they looked at him like, what, is this guy serious? So he said, my uncle's on his way out. He says, come on, let's go. Now, let's go. You, me, and then after I finish with you, I'm going to fight him and him and him and him one at a time. Come on, you. I don't know what he called him, Golden Guinea or something like that. So it was almost on. They were about to go outside, and the other Italian guy goes, no, don't do this. Don't. These guys that are coming over from the ship. Remember when we came over from the ship from Sicily? They're going to come here to make their mark. You don't want him slicing you up. And you don't even know nothing about this guy. You're thinking you're all this and that. So they invited my uncle and my mother to their house. It was on 2nd Avenue. 2nd Avenue in Manhattan. Between 103 and 116th Street. There was this high school named Benjamin Franklin High School. They were near there. The Puerto Rican school go past 3rd Avenue. Puerto Rican had Spanish Harlem. So he went by himself to an Italian neighborhood, dressed up to the T, shark skin suit. You know, he was dressed as a T, but he was ready to rock and roll, you know. So they get to the building, a nice brownstone, and they're there. The little girl's there. And the little girl goes to my grandmother, I'm sorry, you know, I hate you and this and that. And when the neighborhood saw that they were coming, and they were dark-skinned people, everybody showed up in the street, you know, like, what they doing here? And the couple came down. The father came down. He goes, they're here because I want them here. He told the guy, come. I don't know where they went, and they cut a deal. He says, listen, man, you a tough guy. I know a tough guy when I know one. I'm going to give you a deal you can't refuse. I want you to work for us. He's what? I want you to work for us. We're going to open up a social club and you're going to work it. You're going to make 60-40. How about that? This thing about my daughter, your daughter, they're going to be best of friends. Don't worry about it. He saw an opportunity how to get the mob into the Spanish area. You know, they've been wanting to go in there, but they didn't know who to deal with. So when he saw that my grandfather was a real tough guy, you know, they had respect for him. Well, they showed their respect by allowing them to come in there. Then later on, they ended up moving to that same area. Why? Because they needed to protect him against these other Spanish mobsters that didn't want him hanging around. So my grandfather was one of the first ones to really, you know, venture in with the Italians and the Irish. They were still connected with the Irish, my grandmother was. So he was like a protector. Like, if they had to go to any other area that was non-Italian, black, you know, Scottish, Colombian, whatever, they sent my grandmother with whoever. And that was a story with my grandmother. And they weren't involved with the underworld for into the 1950s. And they had speakeasies, jazz clubs. That's how I got involved in jazz. They had 3 floors. One was a weight room, and one was straight ahead jazz. And the top floor was Spanish music for Spanish clientele. And the cops would come in, the Irish cops would come in, and my grandmother would have I was sitting on the counter. I remember this. I was 8 years. I remember I was sitting on the counter. And it was daylight. They were getting ready for the nighttime. So I was there. I hadn't gone to school, and the 2 cops came in. Big, tall Irish cops came in. Alex, how you doing, Alex? They were her protection. And they come in like that, just like out of the movie, man. My grandmother grabs a bottle of, I don't know, Irish goose, Irish whiskey, whatever. And around the battle, she had a rubber band. And on the rubber band, the money was around the bottle. With the money, the payout. And she goes, hi. She gives him a kiss. He kisses her. How you doing, sweetie? We're doing good. People coming. He says, you got that? Of course we got that. So my grandmother would pay him out. And this is whole bottle of this Canadian whiskey. That's what it was. Canadian brand whiskey. She'd hand the bottle with the money around it, and they used to wear these jackets where you could put whatever in, and he was a heavy set dude. So you couldn't tell the difference. He put it in there, and he turned around and looked at me. That's a nice looking kid there. Be careful with him. Don't let him be in the streets, you know. We don't want to have to arrest him. No, my grandmother was like, no. He go to school. He's gonna go to school. And the guys would look at me and look at the place, would walk around the place, make sure that there was nobody bothering my grandmother. And then she would have to pay the Irish and the Italian cop. That's how much money my grandma was making. So she used both. They used her. She used both for protection. Nobody wanted to mess with my grandmother because you got the Irish cops and you got the Italian cops coming around, and the Goombas came around and she would pay them. But the Irish were always more friendly. You know, the Italians were like more business. Come in, you got the money? Yeah. The Irish would hang around, take a shot of whiskey with whoever was there. You know the whole story, how the Irish came to America. And they loved it. And I learned to have Irish friends. I had Italian friends, but I trusted the Irish more. I trusted the Irish more, even in school, even in the military. Now, I didn't know I had Irish in me. Long to know, my grandmother knew. How she knew, I don't know. You know, these are people that wouldn't talk about their past. They wouldn't talk too much about their past. What mattered was the present. Like it is today. You know, you can worry about would've, could've, should've, but what matters is today. Pick up that pipe, smoke that blend. What you didn't learn from your grandparents was for a reason. If your grandparents didn't tell you certain things that happened, they didn't want you to know. So don't go be investigating stuff that's already been lying dead for, 50, 30 years. If people want to go back and rehash all that and get angry over something they could never do something about. This is say to the piper man, piper the sailor man. Understand this. Today is what matters. Today is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. The past, you can't do nothing about it. Today is the day. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. The most important thing in the world. God bless.